With the new killer Chucky coming out in Dead by Daylight, a lot of people are concerning themselves with balance and design once again, as we usually do around this time. So today I want to talk about the Trapper. Hold on for a second here. Something I've been noticing over the past few months is that the pick rates for 3 killers in particular are consistently at the bottom. They don't go any higher, they're always the bottom 3. And that's going to be Hag, Twins, and Freddy. And I don't think this is because they're particularly bad. Hag has always been at absolute least B tier. And especially with her new flashlight rework, I think she's more fair for both sides than she's ever been. Freddy had a ton of work done to make him viable and playable after his laughable release. And then of course we have Twins, which can be really powerful when used correctly. So what I think the issue comes down to is that these characters just aren't fun for people to play. So today I want to take a look at some potential ideas that could switch things up and even make these killers more fun for people, hopefully get those numbers back up. I threw Trapper in here as well, because I think Big Boy could use some love too, especially considering Behavior said that they think he's fine as he is. Coming out the gate with the Bog Queen Hag, my first idea is going to be a delayed fake out trap. Now, this trap is going to have collision, but a delayed trigger as well as notification for both sides. So your survivor walks over it, they set it off, they didn't know, and neither did the killer. A short time later, it spawns a Mud Phantasm. That Mud Phantasm pursues the player and then vanishes shortly after. Now the Mud Phantasm is harmless, but is overall identical to the killer. Now, the killer can swap places with the Mud Phantasm at any time after it's spawned in. So the survivor, if they didn't see it, they don't know whether or not that's the killer. The killer could also pretend to be the AI, pretend to be stupid, so that survivors who maybe call the bluff, they get caught off guard. I think this could add a whole new layer of mind games that could be a lot of fun. And even if a survivor doesn't participate in the mind games, I could imagine it being really scary, especially if you go around a corner and then the fake Hag just immediately comes up on you on a trap you didn't even know you triggered, and then goes away immediately, making you feel like an idiot. My buddy as well suggested the idea of parrying Hag's teleport. Now the way this would work is, maybe you set off the trap, Mud Phantasm spawns in, you're frozen in place, and then there's a quick time prompt. And if you hit that quick time prompt, Hag cannot teleport to you. It denies it entirely. The problem obviously could be, well, what if survivors start to muscle memory the prompt? What if this is like completely shutting down Hag's power? I would say that maybe the prompt doesn't pop up until Hag actually goes for the teleport, or maybe Hag has a way of delaying the prompt so that survivors can't muscle memory it, so that survivors can't entirely get to it. It's just reaction speed alone. And if that is going to be the case, obviously the freeze would have to have a delay or a duration to it, so that way they can't just be trapped permanently. But I think both of these ideas have a ton of potential for making Hag far more engaging for both sides and upping the level of mind games unique to just her. So I think everyone across the board can very easily agree that Twins would be so much better if Victor had some kind of AI that let him do things independently from Charlotte. At the base level, I think maybe we could agree on he can patrol a general area where he's left, similar to a night guard. Getting more advanced, maybe it has a spiral-like shape, and his detection is based largely off sound. Since he's a fetal creature, I think it would be more fitting if he reacts to sound rather than sight. This would also allow counterplay from perks like Deception and Diversion with the Locker Fake Out and the Pebble to draw him away with the fake notifications. If Victor does detect a survivor, I would say he would chase them mindlessly, just kind of following them in a straight line. If the survivor does not break line of sight, he will eventually jump for them, and then the usual gameplay mechanics apply. So if he hits the survivor, he latches on, deals damage for a health state. If he misses, he's stunned, the survivor can kick him. A more radical idea I had was, what if Victor could be thrown in a heavy arc, and how he behaves is determined by how far he was thrown and where he lands. If you hit a wall up close, it immediately terminates Victor. He's done. If Victor lands, he'll have a short delay, then he'll engage in either patrolling or pursuing, depending on if he detects a survivor or not. If Victor hits a survivor out of chase, like you Hail Married them, survivor didn't see it coming, and it hit him, I would say then that it behaves normally with the latch on usual mechanics. If you're in chase and you land a cheeky Victor throw, I would say in order to prevent this from completely changing the chase and fucking over the survivor, perhaps Victor damages them for a health state, steals whatever item they have, and then he runs off with it. The survivor will then have the aura revealed to them of that item wherever he drops it so that they could go get it later. I think this could add a whole lot more to Twins, allow Twins players to kind of multitask as well, because the current way of like switching between Charlotte and Victor, it leaves the player open. They can't truly multitask because there's that delay between switching between them. The survivors are always watching them, always waiting for them to switch so that they could get in and do something. It would ultimately make the idea of there being 2 killers on the field at once a much more true statement instead of the current 1.5, which I feel could be a lot more compelling for people who want to play Twins, as well as a lot more engaging for people against Twins. Now obviously the number one thing we need for Freddy is new drip. The fact that he has no drip at all obviously is more to deal with the IP. Behavior is normally more than willing to add new outfits, but I think a large part of what makes Freddy boring is the fact that he has no cosmetics whatsoever. So when we do eventually get that Five Nights at Freddy's collab, I want to see Freddy have the Phantom Freddy from FNAF 3 as a usable skin. That would immediately make things a lot better. Jokes aside, my initial idea for Freddy gameplay was to add tiers to his dream state, very similar to Doctor's Madness mechanics. Tier 1 is going to be your normal gameplay. We hit Tier 2 after 2 gens. At this point, there's going to be randomly roving red stains around the map, because Freddy doesn't actually have a red stain in the dream state. So I think adding this is not only a knowledge check, but it adds to the idea of being in a waking nightmare, with all these conflicting visuals around that are intimidating, scary. Following up with that, I want Freddy silhouettes at the edge of the view distance that gradually approach the player and then vanish, to kind of give you the idea that, oh, maybe he's coming this way. Maybe I need to hide, maybe I need to run. We then hit Tier 3 after 4 gens. All gens now have flickering lights, even if they've been done, and I want all player models to become Freddy. I don't think any of these are particularly unbalanced. Most players are going to know better than red stains just moving around the map. They would know that Freddy doesn't have a red stain in the dream state. They would know that, you know, you can't just have Freddy approaching and then disappearing on the horizon. And as far as flickering lights are concerned, most good teams are going to know what gens they've done already. All player models being Freddy as well, that's not really going to throw anyone off guard, unless they're just particularly jumpy, they're particularly immersed. So a new thing as well. I think the fake palette add-on needs to be upgraded. In this regard, I think Freddy should be able to trap pre-existing palettes, adding a kind of blood drip effect to them so that you can distinguish them. It'll drop like normal when the survivor uses it, but it has that hinder loud noise effect that normally comes when a survivor sets off a dream snare. Entirely fake palettes should still be replicas. I think this would make things a lot more engaging, because Freddy currently doesn't have much he can do with that fake palette. It only works against teams who aren't entirely paying attention. Most teams can call out what palettes they've dropped, and at the start of a match, all potential palettes have kind of already spawned in most of the time. So there's no potential for Freddy to kind of maximize on palettes that maybe haven't even spawned in yet. This could add a whole new layer of depth to Freddy. Now, maybe it's a little overcomplicated. Feel free to let me know or throw your own ideas at me, but that's the idea I came up with. I think it could be a far better improvement than how Freddy performs normally. Alright, now heading into the bonus round. Here's some ideas for Trapper. I'm going to keep this short and sweet. Barbed wire. Infinite usages, however, only a limited amount are allowed to exist at any given time. Barbed wire can be used to trap doorways, vaults, interactables in that regard. When a survivor performs a rushed action, such as, a fast vault or running through it, it puts them into the deep wound state. However, the barbed wire is still harmless if crouch walked through or slow vaulted. I think it should be allowed to be destroyed by a toolbox, since we already accept that toolboxes have every common tool in it, as well as destroyed by survivors with Saboteur, since we already accept that that perk makes them magic. To prevent a kind of lose-lose situation for the survivor, I think that the bear trap cannot be placed within relative proximity to barbed wire, or vice versa, so that way they're not presented with a situation where, oh, well, if I fast vault the window, I'm going to get deep wounded, but if I slow vault the window, I'm going to land the bear trap. Additionally, I think Trapper should have a new add-on called Trap Paint, which allows the trap to slightly color match with the ground it's placed on, so that way survivors can't really see it as easily. I think Trapper currently is just way too map dependent. You need that tall grass for him to have any kind of viability, especially on some of the brighter maps where you can just see his trap. There already is something similar with the black paint, but the black paint can even be a hindrance on certain maps. So I think adding in a more chameleon-like variant would be a far better replacement. Closing us out, I'm going to really quickly recap on the ideas covered in this video. Hag, delayed fake-out traps, parryable teleports to kind of add a more dynamic gameplay between her and the survivors, rather than just a traditional trap-based killer. Twins incorporating a level of AI with Victor, so that way it feels more like 2 killers on the map at a time, rather than 1.5 that we have currently. Freddy, adding tears to the dream state to add more trippy visual effects and increase the immersion of going against him, as well as upgrading the fake palettes to make them more viable and a lot more fun for both sides. Lastly, Trapper, adding barbed wire so that he has something new to his kit that allows him to be a lot more versatile, as well as Trap Paint that makes his bear traps not be completely useless depending on the map. I want to thank you all for watching, sticking with me for this long. It means a whole lot to me, especially with the watch time and the support I get from some of these videos. If you have ideas of your own, feel free to throw them in the comments below. I'll try to read and reply as people add to the discussion. And I hope you all have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.